Hey, and welcome back to the channel. And it's been about a month since I've had the Nothing Phone 2, and as hard as it was to keep it a secret, I'm really excited that I can finally talk about the phone. And wow, they did not disappoint here with the Phone 2. Alright, so first things first, the Nothing Phone 2 is using the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 processor, which yes, technically is last year's flagship processor, but it's still a very good and super fast processor. Now, Nothing really refined this chip and optimized this to the rest of the Phone 2's hardware, which makes this chip a viable option, but also helps cut the cost down since the newer 8 Gen 2 is quite pricey, and we'll talk about the phone's price later in the video. Now, besides the 8 Plus Gen 1 processor, you're also getting 12 gigs of RAM and up to 512 gigs of storage, but the one I'm reviewing has 256 gigs of storage. In terms of design and how the phone feels, in my opinion, it doesn't feel all that different from the Phone 1 in terms of its size, but the curved glass on the back with the flat sides do make it feel more comfortable in hand and more premium in a way. I also like the fact that the volume buttons and power buttons are placed almost somewhat in the middle of the frame, which makes reaching for these buttons a lot easier one-handed. Now, the display size did get a slight bump from the Phone 1, going from a 6.5 inch to a 6.7 inch. Now, if I could change one thing about the Phone 2 or any future Nothing smartphones, it would probably be the display size. Personally, I would love a 6.3 inch display versus the 6.7 inch display here on the Phone 2. But nonetheless, the screen on this phone looks really good and I have no real complaints with it so far. The Phone 2 is still rocking an OLED display which looks beautiful to look at with vibrant colors and deep blacks. It's still at 120Hz refresh rate that can dip down to 1 Hz if needed, but it now has a peak brightness of 1600 nits. Now, going around back, we have the familiar Glyph Interface on the back, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit. And then we have the new dual cameras on the back, which are dual 50 megapixel cameras. Different type of sensor for the main wide camera, but it's still the same sensor for the ultra wide. It's still a 1x and 8.6x camera. Now, obviously, I wish there was a telephoto camera here since I love that compressed look that a telephoto lens gives you, but maybe we'll get that with the Phone 3. But for now, it's still using a dual camera setup, and we'll go more in depth with the camera later in the video, I promise. So back to the Glyph interface here on the back. The Glyph lighting on the Phone 2 is slightly different looking than the Phone 1, and at first I thought this was just an eye candy and really gimmicky, but I really like what they're doing here. Basically, if you get a new text or call coming in, the back of the phone will light up that syncs with the in-house ringtones and text tones that Nothing made, or you can make one yourself using their Composer app. And let's say you set a timer on your phone. The Phone 2 will have this light that will run down till the timer runs out to let you know that your timer's up. It's all really cool features that adds to the value or uniqueness of the Phone 2. Besides that though, you can also use it as an additional light when taking photos or videos, although I wish that you can adjust the intensity of the Glyph lighting, and also maybe a way for users to adjust the color temperature instead of this cold bluish white color. But that's just me. Oh, and also they still have the red tally light here that blinks to indicate that you're recording a video, but you can always turn this feature off if you'd like. Okay, so besides that, the Phone 2 also packs a 4700 milliamp hour battery, which is just a few hundred away from the 5000 milliamp hour battery that most flagship Android phones are equipped with now. The charging speed did improve slightly at 40 watts wired and 15 watts wirelessly with reverse wireless charging, so that's really nice to see here. Now, battery life is a bit subjective here because how I use the phone could be a lot different than how you typically use your phone, but with the Phone 2, I've been getting all-day battery life from 7 to 11 p.m. with about 10 to 15% battery left. Definitely not a 2-day battery smartphone, but if you're working from home and have access to chargers all day, this won't be an issue, but still, all day from a flagship is all you can really ask for. So now that we've covered the basics of the new Phone 2, how does it perform on a day-to-day basis? So with the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, the Phone 2 feels and performs really well on a day-to-day basis. On the home screen, navigating throughout Android, it feels really smooth with little to no input lag, and switching between apps is really fluid too, and it almost feels like a flagship Pixel phone with how smooth it is. The software feels very vanilla, but with a touch of Nothing graphics all over it, from the cool fonts to the interactive widgets on the lock screen and home screen to the really cool weather app. There weren't really a ton of extra software that came pre-installed on here. Majority of the stock apps were all Google apps, but yeah, this phone with the Nothing launcher just makes it feel so different, and I'm really digging this monochromatic look to everything. It's a nice change of pace from the vibrant setups that we've had in the past. When it comes to heavy intensive tasks, the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 is obviously going to perform really well no matter what you throw at it, whether you're playing Genshin or Asphalt, or maybe you're doing a bit of multitasking every day. I've had no issues with the 8 Plus Gen 1. It is an older chip from Qualcomm since we have the 8 Gen 2 now, but the 8 Plus Gen 1 is still very capable, very premium, and very fast for a lot less money. Now, nothing really optimizes this chip with the rest of their hardware, and I don't really have anything bad to say about its overall performance. Now, thermals felt good too. I played about an hour or two of Diablo the other day, and performance seemed really solid with no noticeable hiccups or stutter. It is around the summertime here in the US, and even if I were to use the phone outdoors, played some games or record videos or take photos for a brief period of time, I haven't had the phone overheat yet, so that's a really good sign. And even if I was to use this phone for lighter tasks like web browsing or scrolling on social media apps or taking courses on Brilliant, it can handle most of those things like a champ. Now, as someone who's into new tech and video games, I've always wondered how people got into coding. Like the Glyph Interface on the phone 2, for example, how did they write the code to make sure that whenever I turn the phone on its face, it'll light up the Glyph Interface and tell the phone that it's facing down, so you gotta light up and vibrate for a quick second. As someone who wants to learn how to code, using Brilliant is a no-brainer, and their latest course, Thinking in Code, has been a tremendous help with building foundations for computational problem solving. As a visual person, I appreciate the graphical interface that Brilliant offers and how they're able to break down each game or lesson I play so that I know exactly what each code of line means. Whenever I log on, I always feel like I'm playing a puzzle game, but instead of just, leveling up or advancing to the next stage, I end up learning more about coding, and hopefully, by the end of it all, I get to one day write my own app so that you can all download it and enjoy it. Now, you can access all the courses that I've been taking by going to brilliant.org/MarkLinsangan, and you'll get a 30-day free trial. And if you decide to upgrade, the first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Again, a huge shout out to Brilliant for sponsoring a portion of this video. All right, now let's talk cameras. The dual cameras on the phone 2 is an exciting one, not only because of the new hardware, but because I remember Nothing pushing out a ton of updates throughout the course of the Nothing Phone 1's life cycle and improving its photo quality via software updates. Now that Nothing has well over hundreds of dedicated software engineers to help develop the phone 2 and its OS, they really wanted to go all out with the phone 2 to make sure that photo quality and video quality on this phone looks better than the phone 1. Now, even though this phone doesn't have a dedicated telephoto camera or a 1-inch sensor, shooting photos on the main wide camera is a lot of fun. Not only can you get super close to your subject and have tack-sharp focus, the natural bokeh that you can get out of the main camera looks incredible since it's using the IMX890 sensor for the main camera. Now, the photos don't look super sharp or super vibrant in a way where it's over-processed. I think it's really well balanced with natural looking colors, although a bit contrasty in some shots. It is kind of like a Pixel camera, but slightly different. Now, whether you love or hate Pixel cameras and how they process photos, I think Pixel phones over the last couple of years have the best image quality that produces really well balanced photos. Now, even in low light situations or dimly lit situations, the Nothing Phone 2 can handle the photos just fine with some grain and noise in the shadows, but not to a point where it doesn't look good enough to not post on your social feed or your stories. Now, what I did notice after weeks of using this phone is that photos in general take a few seconds to process after shooting, and the ultra-wide camera, whenever you're looking at the viewfinder before snapping a photo, it actually looks terrible. But when you take a photo and let it process, it magically looks really good all of a sudden. I'm not sure why that's happening, but don't let your eyes or the viewfinder fool you. Just snap a photo and see what the final image looks like after it's done processing. Now, videos on the other hand is a different story here versus photo quality. I think the video capabilities on the phone 2 is good, but like nothing to rave about. I'm obviously super biased towards phones with 1-inch sensors, but let's say those phones didn't exist, and if I were to rank my top smartphones with the best video, I'd probably put the S23 Ultra first, then iPhone 14 Pro Max second, but I'll probably put the phone 2 third and the Pixel 7 Pro in fourth. I just don't think the phone 2's video quality is anything special. It's fine, it's good, it's just not something that wowed me. And in terms of pricing, I'd say it's somewhat competitive, with a starting price of $599 for 8 gigabytes and 128 gigs of storage, $699 for 12 gigs and 256 gigs of storage, and $799 for 12 gigs and 512 gigs of storage. I think pricing for this phone is fair. It's similar to the Pixel 7 when it comes to pricing, and if you missed out on that versus video, make sure to check it out, links down below. But let's put the Nothing Phone 2 this way. If you've never seen or used a Nothing Phone before, look at an iPhone 14 Pro Max. Physically, that's what the Phone 2 looks like, but more comfortable because of the rounded glass back, and the Glyph interface is pretty unique looking. It is a nice change of pace from the usual Google and Samsung phones that we're all used to, and I think how they did software and matched it with the hardware blends really well with each other, and overall, I'm a big fan and I'm really digging this phone. Anyways, that's been it for this video, and if you guys did enjoy it, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thank you all so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.